Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Roop, and I am the jury chairman of the Lovie Awards. And I'm coming to you from BBC Television Centre in West London. First, I want to say a big welcome to all of you. We are thrilled you are with us here today. This year marks the 11th annual Lovie Awards, and we are so excited to close our event series, Reshape What's Possible, with this last one today, which is focused on design and creativity. The internet has been our glue through this pandemic, and we can't wait to see what's kept our wonderful guests inspired throughout it all. Today, we are going to focus on how these talented designers have been able to stay inspired, both creatively and visually, from afar. Our aim is to create an experience that strips away pretension and encourages our participants to address the essentials of their craft. To do this, we have created a format which focuses on a theme which is simple yet intensely personal. What do I need in order to create great design? While of course it's extremely fun to attend this event in person, we think there is something really special about this format for a virtual experience. And we are super excited that you can all join us from all over the world. A bit of background about today's guests. We have Eva Lotta Lamm. She's a designer, author, and visual thinker. And after 15 years working as a UX and digital product designer in Paris and London for Google, Skype, and Yahoo, she shifted her professional focus to her lifelong passion of visual thinking. And I think we're actually going to see some of that in action today. Sorry to give away a little spoiler there. She's now based in Berlin. She's running her own business designing, both physical and digital products that teach a global audience how to use sketching as a tool for understanding, thinking, and communicating more efficiently. In her spare time, Eva Lotta practices yoga and improvisation, loves traveling when she can, obviously, and foreign languages and learning new things. These passions have inspired several of her published books that capture her experiences in the form of rich visual notes. And hopefully, Eva, you'll tell us what those books are so we can run out and buy them later. Joining Eva Lotta is Martin Kuipers. He's in Amsterdam. He's a senior visual designer and art director at Department, which is an agency in Amsterdam. And they won the Lovie Agency of the Year last year. So we're really happy to have you, Martin, to show how awesome you and your agency are and why you're worthy Lovie winners. With a background in graphic design and a love for print and branding, Martin creates experiences where accessibility meets conversion and where branding meets digital. When he's not pushing pixels, he's pushing the limits in the Boulder Gym. And I don't understand that, Martin, so you will have to tell me what that is later. One last note before we dive in. We would love to hear from all of you watching at home. So please feel free to use the Q&A module under the video to submit questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the event. So without further ado, let's welcome Eva Lotta, who's going to do the first presentation.
All right. Is it my turn now? All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Nick, in the first place. Thanks for the invitation. I'm going to talk a little bit about what inspired me during lockdown and beyond, and what kept my creativity going. Actually, the first slide is completely unnecessary because Nick already told you who I am. My name is Eva Lotta. If you want to follow me on any kind of social media, you should go to @Eva which basically means little Eva Lotta in German, because the hen makes everything small. And I draw pictures for a living to kind of make problems and complex situations visual and understandable and manipulatable. And I also teach people how to draw these pictures themselves, be it systems or processes, to kind of get more clarity for themselves, but also when they work with the team. So the question that Nick and Emma actually put out to us when we prepared for this event was, what inspired you during lockdown and also now beyond lockdown? What do you take out of this kind of weird situation that we all globally have been in? And I've been thinking about it, and I've got 4 points that really inspired me. So the first point is time and the perception of time and what happened to time. I think we all probably have a pretty special mixed up feeling of time during this last year and a half. For me, I got a lot more time because all of a sudden when COVID hit, all my clients, conferences, workshops that I was about to teach, they were basically just canceled. So there was a lot of time for me to actually do other things and do some projects that I wanted to actually invest more time in, making books, making online courses, making digital products, like all kinds of things that I already started doing. But when a client project came in, I was likely to kind of treat the client project as more important. So that was actually a great moment where I thought, yeah, actually this means that I can say yes to my own projects and take them more seriously. And I was super thankful for it, to have this time and actually put more energy into my own stuff. The second point that really inspired me was because this shook up all of us. I really felt that there was something like a period of grace. You know, we all had to adapt to shift stuff online, to shift education online, meetings, working together, collaboration. And there was really this feeling like we were just all winging it and figuring it out as we went. And this gave me a lot of freedom to experiment without the pressure of it having to be perfect from the start. So I really enjoyed it. And I started teaching lots of workshops that I, in the beginning, organized myself. Now clients came back and want workshops. This is my setup in the beginning, like just some lights. And this is a little document camera. And just basically drawing with a camera overhead that is kind of looking down, and then people could see it here on my screen. I taught different formats. I taught kind of professional teams, but I also taught just normal people how to draw portraits and how to simplify faces effectively. I also taught yoga teachers how to draw yoga sequences with stick figures, because yoga is one of my passions as well. And I wrote a book about it, and I experimented with different formats of workshops for this. There were also other events that experimented. There was one event organized by my friend Mark Thiele, who organizes the Beyond Tellerrand conference in Düsseldorf usually, but conferences off as well. So he developed an online format called Stay Curious. And together with another sketchnoting colleague of mine, Nadine Rossa, we experimented with a format where we actually interviewed each other. And while we were interviewing each other, we were drawing on a big Miro board. And at the end of the conversation, this was our Miro board. So we were live sketchnoting our own conversation about sketchnoting and visual thinking. And you would be surprised. You can actually draw quite well if you have an iPad and a stylus on a Miro board and draw on it together, because it's a shared whiteboard. That was actually quite a cool aha moment for me, that I'm also using in other types of work now. And I actually also enjoyed playing around with my setup a little bit. So I have a better camera now. So now I have a little camcorder that is looking down. I can't show you in person because you might be looking through it. And also, I really enjoyed this getting into this piece of software called OBS that actually allows me to do these things, you know, that you saw in the beginning, to kind of have a nice framing for myself and also embed different video sources, like having my face here and having my iPad that I'm running this presentation on as well. So I learned a lot of things. I improvised and I experimented, but because of that period of grace, there was actually room for it, and it's nice. It was a nice experience to have this non-pressure environment, I felt. The third thing that really inspired me was, oddly enough, community. Although from afar, especially the visual thinking community, really got very small or very close. Usually there are lots of visual thinking meetups in different cities. You know, there's one in Berlin, and then there's one in Copenhagen. I don't know, there's a canal here. And then there is one in London. So here you have a London bus. So they're all over the place and they meet up, and it's lovely to meet people. But through COVID, actually, a lot of people shifted their meetups online. So there was the possibility to actually attend a lot of wonderful talks and meetups and interactive discussions all around visual thinking, and get to know actually the global community and not only your local community. So yeah, there were lots of meetups with things where actually people participate, and we did exercises and showed each other what we did. Here are a few sketch notes from meetups I attended. So there was a meetup with Dan Rome. He is basically one of the first people to do visual thinking or write about visual thinking with his book Back of the Napkin, and he did a fantastic workshop at one of the meetups at ScotViz. There was a meetup with Ben Crothers. He's from Australia. So usually I don't get to see him a lot. I met him once in person, and he's a fabulous visual thinker. So that was great to learn from him. There were also topics that were a little bit lighter, like what we can learn from children's drawings, which was absolutely wonderful, with people bringing their children's drawings, and we looked at what we could learn from that. And then there were also just afternoons where we just randomly drew stuff together, like drawing different cows and having a chat while drawing. So I really felt that it was a great time for the community to come together and also to experiment with different formats that we could do together, although we were not in the same room. Actually, if you're interested in these wonderful visual thinking meetups, there is a blog post on my blog. It's actually the most recent one. So if you go to my blog, you'll find it, and you can have a look, because you can participate as well. And they are all free, basically. And the last thing that inspired me was learning something new. I mean, I already talked about learning new things, but let's say learning something completely new. And also learning something completely new that is not work related. Yay. So this window of time also made me a little bit more relaxed to just say, you know what, maybe I give myself a little bit more time to also do a few other things and actually look after myself. So I bought myself these beauties. As a child, I loved roller skating, and I just basically, between the age of 8 and 12, I think I spent, I don't know, every afternoon that it was not raining, just going up and down the street with my friends. And then 25 years of nothing. And in March, I bought myself a pair of roller skates. And since then, basically every morning that wasn't raining looks like that for me. This is a wonderful place in Berlin. It is called Tempelhofer Feld. It used to be an airport, and now it still looks like the airport, but without the airplanes. And you have the airstrips to kind of walk and skate and kite around and do all kinds of things. It is a marvelous place. And you can also see this little thing. That's the TV tower at the Alexanderplatz, if you know Berlin. You can even see it from there. Very nice. So I've been spending a lot of time skating and learning how to roller skate and learning different tricks and dance moves and cruising and going backwards and all this kind of stuff. And apart just from the physical joy that this activity brought to me, because it is just wonderful to just glide around and this feeling of freedom, there's also something else that I learned or that I connected back with, was the process of learning something new and what it feels like. So when we learn something new in the beginning, a lot of it is in our head. We're actually, trying to figure out, okay, there's a method. How do I do this trick? How do I do backwards? So first I need to do that. Then second, I need to do that. Third, I need to do that. It's like a lot of steps. It's very technical. There are lots of great YouTube videos or people who can explain it to you, but you're basically in your head trying to figure it out. And in your body, it often feels very clunky. But then, so this is the very technical stage where you're just trying to follow something, an explanation. And then after some while, something really magical happens, and it's like you start to feel it in your body. It's kind of, it's a shift. It's basically your body is going like, light bulb moment. I can feel it now. Like it's just the balance shifts, or you're feeling it instead of thinking about every single step. I'm sure you did some activity, maybe playing a musical instrument or maybe drawing, where you went from something that didn't quite feel right to kind of, all of a sudden something, there's something you feel. You can go more from the feeling. And then the beautiful thing, once you have this feeling, it's kind of the beautiful thing starts, because then you can start to kind of, play with this. So you can start playing and bringing in your own style, and not only going with what somebody explained, but also inventing your new things or combining new things. And I feel that this way of learning is actually how we learn anything. If it's design, when you start as a designer, you have these rules about typography and about color, and it's like you try to go by the rules, but at some point you develop kind of this feeling and you can feel if it's a good design. It's kind of more intuitive. It's very hard to explain. And then at some point you probably develop your own style and your way of working. And it was just lovely to be reminded of this process in a completely different context. And it inspired me a lot for my own teaching, when I teach people to draw and to do visual thinking and all this kind of stuff. So that was a huge inspiration on the meta level that is constantly going back into my teaching now. So, and for the last question, what is beyond? What am I actually taking with me in the time that is coming? I feel like in some weird way during lockdown, it felt like it was a time to kind of put some seeds into a small pot, into a very small pot that was kind of, quarantined in a house and kind of very protected, but also kind of not able to go beyond it. But now I feel like, that things are opening up. I can take these seedlings that I planted in that time and actually put them, into this more freedom, more open world again, where we have more possibilities, and really let this grow, but take some of the spirit of the things that I learned to maybe do some things a little bit differently, and incorporate that in the way that I work. So with that, I am done with my inspiration. And what I want to say to you is thank you for listening. If you are interested in visual thinking in general, and want a little intro, I have a little PDF that gives you kind of a quick start that you can kind of download for free, and then you get wonderful emails with inspiration from me as well. And otherwise, if you have questions, please do ask them after Martin gave his talk, because I love conversation.
Excellent. That was incredibly inspiring and very positive. I love the end part. I think hopefully we all feel like that our little seedlings will find fertile soil out there after the last couple of years. Martin, over to you. Are you ready to share your presentation? There you are. Look,
I'm ready. So let me share my screen. Okay, let's start. Yeah, of course, first of all, thanks for having me. And thanks, Eva, for the great inspirational talk already. And in the upcoming 10 minutes, you will see how I and we adapt got inspired from afar. Because is afar really afar? That's the question I hope to answer with this talk. Let me first introduce myself, a little bit more about me. I'm Martin, living and working in Amsterdam. I'm a senior designer and art director at Adapt Agency. I'm a print lover, so also a book lover. And you will find me on the wall when I'm not behind my laptop. So as said, like what Nicolas already asked, what is bouldering? That's climbing inside a boulder hole without a rope. I think that's in short is what it is. And yeah, it's really nice. It's with colors. So yeah, and I'm a designer, so of course I like that. And a bit more about Dept, because that's where I'm working. Dept is a digital agency with more than 2,000 people working across Europe and the US. We have a nice culture and even our own clothing brand, Dept Apparel. And one of the highlights is that we have our own festival. Dept Festival, it's called, with speakers, workshops, and DJs even. And this and last year, of course, we had a virtual edition because of the pandemic. Okay, let me show some work we do at Dept. We did this virtual playground for Eurovision Song Festival. We did a visual online experience for the Van Gogh Museum. We did a great and user-friendly shop for Bugaboo strollers. An app for Bol, one of the biggest web shops in the Netherlands, where kids can scan toys with image recognition, watching videos, and playing games. And a branded e-commerce experience for luxury brand Floss, and this one went live today. And of course we do a lot more, but that you can, of course, can watch our site or socials and have a look. Okay, let me start with the topic of today. I think it's good to first refresh our memory a bit. Like, what is inspiration? Inspiration means the process of being mentally stimulated to do or feel something creative. And design means a plan or drawing produced to show the look and function or workings of a building or other object before it's made. And that brings me to the following. We are designers and creatives like Eva and me, and we need to get stimulated to use our imagination and ideas to create the best work. And that's why we need to stay inspired. And that's why also I think this talk is pretty important. In my opinion, there are two ways to get inspired, unconscious and via the conscious way. Let me start with the unconscious way. Steven Sarkmeister, maybe you already know him. He already said before, like, ideas can come from everywhere. And I think this is true. We all know those moments when you're taking a shower or laying in bed trying to sleep. The best ideas pop up on these random moments. So we don't always need our typical resources of inspiration to get inspired. However, it could help a lot when you're going for the conscious way and really look yourself for inspiration. And that's, I think, also the focus of this talk of today. Because we have plenty of slides left, I will go a bit faster, let me show the way I personally always get inspired by the conscious way. Normally, before pandemic, I visit conferences, attending talks and workshops, doing courses. We at DEP do that as well. And I'm always on the lookout for inspiration. And this is in a nutshell how my 2019 looked like. So I visited conferences like OFF in Barcelona. I attended Ad Night, which is a yearly night a year in Amsterdam where all advertising agencies opening their doors and organizing workshops, talks and parties. I went to Today at Apple with the brilliant illustrator Karan Singh, also in Amsterdam in the Apple Store. I joined events from Framer, Adobe, Sketch, InVision, etc. To learn more about their tools. And all, of course, before pandemic. And I visited a lot of museums worldwide, also during Museumnacht, museum night. And that's one night a year where all museums are opening the doors in Amsterdam and organize something special. This photo is from the Van Gogh Museum. And as I said, probably most of you already know, but we got into a pandemic. And that scared us because we couldn't do all the things we love to get inspired. So what now? Steven Zwackmeister was already talking about a long train ride, Renaissance paintings, hotel rooms, etc. But none of them was possible anymore in the way we used to. Museums were closed, concerts and festivals were cancelled, and we saw less hotel rooms than ever before. But let me take this one from Lisa, creative director at Studio Dumba. She's getting inspired from everything and everywhere. And she's right about that. We are not limited to physical inspiration. We don't have to go somewhere. We can always find our inspiration ourselves on the internet, for example. So maybe a bit less everywhere, but a bit more everything. That's possible in these times. Because of the pandemic, everything went online and virtual. So the whole list I mentioned before, conferences, courses, exhibitions, everything was visible and virtual. And next to this, of course, there are all those standard things which we, I think, love more than ever nowadays. So reading books, watching documentaries, and listening to podcasts. So it's maybe no longer visiting, or maybe it's hard. Also here in the Netherlands, we still have our restrictions, but it's really easy, of course, to visit online, attending, watching, listening, reading, exploring, and doing, of course. So let me show some of those examples. We can still attend virtually. For example, of course, a little bit commercial, virtual DEP Festival for our colleagues and clients. So we created a virtual world, which is almost looks like the real DEP Festival. And we had speakers like G Monk, and also Steven Zwackmeister was there. And we had DJs and lots of other activities all online for our colleagues and clients. But you can also go to other virtual conferences and festivals like Blanc, for example, normally in Barcelona, this time online. They had many online talks which you can visit, see online with leaders in our creative industry like Yarsa Twins, Be Real, Anton and Irene, and also our own Studio Dumba was there. And even the Dutch Design Week went virtual. So normally the Dutch Design Week is in Eindhoven. You can visit a lot of exhibitions and buildings and architecture and art and everything. It's also really nice to visit one day. But in these times there was a virtual edition where you had all those exhibitions online in different rooms you could visit, created by Verve Agency. Watching inspirational stuff is also a possibility, of course, easy from the couch. Like, for example, the brilliant documentaries from Gary Husband about Dieter Rams and his work for Brown. Abstract, of course, is a great series on Netflix with multiple seasons. With one of the main figures was Ian Spalter, head of Instagram, which he was explaining how they work at Instagram and how they create new features in the app. And watching awards talks could also be really inspiring. Everything is online, everything is for free. Interviews, courses, talks, everything is in there. and even live shows. And one particular, this one is from Maxwell Nieblock, my colleague, and he did a talk about his great portfolio website. Okay, we had watching, we had attending, we also, of course, have listening. And for example, the Private View podcast is also really a great one. They have interviews with really big agencies like Collins, Design Studio, and Gretel. They explain how they work, how the office is looking like, and also nowadays during the pandemic, what they're doing. And also more interviews via 1Q. Means one question, I think. There are a lot online, also free to watch, about several artists and agencies like Anthony Burrell and Veronica from Hey Studio. So a lot of nice talks over there. And maybe you got tired of that screen I'm always talking about, like, okay, watching, listening. Of course, you can read as well. So take a book. And I'm a book addict, so I buy a lot of books, and sometimes I read them as well, but I'm really addicted to nice books. Or when the cover is already nice, I buy it. This is a collection of my books, and I post them online. So on my Instagram channel, Tsundoku, which means buying a lot of books and not reading them. But I think that's a nice one. But there are all my books, and I think it's not updated anymore, but I will update it soon. So I have hundreds of design books in the meantime, and love to get inspiration from there as well. And of course, there's exploring. I think that's something we all do, scrolling endless on various platforms like Behance, Dribbble, etc., to find that inspiration we didn't know we were looking for. So just watching, and sometimes in an unconscious mind, something is happening, and you're trying to involve that in a project. It could be a color palette, it could be a typography, it could be a grid they are using, etc. This is one of my favorite platforms to find that good inspiration. It's called Safe. And I'm posting my stuff on it for 4 years now, I think. And I think it's really great to use. It's easy to post. It's easy to save images. It's really cleaner than Pinterest and all the other ones. So I think this is a pretty nice one. And the quality of people who are posting their designs is also pretty high. So I think this is a really big recommendation. And it's maybe a bit old school, but my screensaver is always nice to look at. I use a folder for this, and there I post all my inspirational stuff in there, and then I get this kind of screensaver, and it's every day, every moment it's different, and I have thousands of images in there, so it's always completely new. And I'm using Instagram also for friends and family, but most of the time for inspiration. And I try to like only design-related stuff. Not all my friends and family like that, because I never like their pictures. But I like those inspirational stuff for already 10 years. So it's a big list of images, and I'm also trying to filter it by saving it on color and those kind of things. And mostly, this is my start of my day. So this is my homepage in my browser, or my starting page in my browser, and I get a quick overview of everything that's happening. So I think most of you know this one, but it helps me a lot to start the day. And the last one, also an important one, I think, is doing. Maybe drawing, like Eva already told, but maybe you can also do design challenges. For example, the left and the right one are from T, an old colleague of mine, and the middle one is from Kevin, also a great talent. And they started these challenges in their pandemic times to learn new stuff, to post it online and get feedback. And I did it as well, but way before the pandemic, just to learn myself new things, just expose my designs. I designed every day something random and posted on Instagram, and of course I got response in it. Sometimes good feedback, sometimes bad feedback, sometimes people liked it, sometimes not. and always good to challenge yourself to do it every day. And maybe I was a bit too fanatic, but I sometimes in the evening, it was almost 12 o'clock, I wanted to go to bed, and I thought, oh fuck, I still have to do this design challenge. So I was designing and opening my laptop again and creating something. So that was a nice challenge. I can recommend it to everyone. And I do a lot of hobby projects with friends, like just for clients we love to work with or for, and not always for money, just sometimes just for nice institutions or initiatives. For example, this branding we did for a short film about vegan athletes. So these kind of projects we also like to do in our own time to get inspired, maybe also for work at depth or other things. I think this one is nice to mention. Dutch design studio Lennarts and de Bruin. They started something nice during the pandemic, and it's called Stay Sane, Stay Safe. And it was basically a poster competition where designers could design their posters, upload it here, and other people can download it, print it, and maybe on the wall or on the door. And it was meant for all the people who were working really hard in the healthcare and in the hospitals, etc. So I think that was a really nice initiative for designers. And another one is this one, a design competition from Arte Clothing in Belgium. And my two colleagues, Christopher and Pedro from Dunbar, created these pandemic T-shirts within this competition. It was a big competition. They got hundreds of designs for possible T-shirts regarding the pandemic, and they created a book of it with all the designs in there, with one winner, and this one will be in the web shop. So I think that's also nice to do those competitions, to challenge yourself with these restrictions like the pandemic. I think that's pretty nice. Also bought this shirt. I think they did a great job. I think that was a lot about how I got inspired and a little bit about what we do at Depth. Of course, me and all my colleagues did the previous things as well, but I think it's worth to mention what we do at Depth. What I said before, we do everything virtually. So we have Depth Talks, which is sometimes in general about general subjects, but also sometimes about design, where people can talk about it or just attend these talks. So I think that's pretty nice. And also conferences. I joined the Forward Festival in Munich online earlier this year, and these kind of conferences are pretty nice to join online. And virtual design meets, we have global design meets and design meets within our Amsterdam Rotterdam team. That's also pretty nice. People are showing their cases where they are working on, showing their also inspirational stuff where they got inspired by. Sometimes we do workshops with each other online, sometimes in Miro or Figma or those tools, which works also really well. And we use multiple Slack channels. Also, we did that before pandemic, but now even more to share inspiration. Channels about UX, about technique, visual design, etc. Then my key takeaway of today. I think when we talk about how to stay inspired from afar, I think the answer is the following. Working in these times of a pandemic can be hard. The usual physical sources of inspiration, like visiting museums or conferences, or were not available for a long time. But let's be real, we are living in a digital era, so we can go on the internet and have a look at a lot of stuff. And within a few clicks, we can get inspired. Of course, we all miss our museum visits and conferences, events. But getting and staying inspired is something broader. It's something we find in everything and everywhere, like Lisa said, and consciously and unconsciously. So sometimes under the shower, of course, and sometimes just on one of the platforms I just showed. And that was it. Thanks all, and I hope you got inspired from afar.
We certainly did. I'm speaking for the audience, and I can tell by some of the questions that you definitely got some people thinking and very curious. But both presentations are very different, but both very optimistic, I think, very positive about. I mean, obviously we're not positive about what happened health-wise, but both seem to put forward a story where we adapted, we learnt a ton, and we probably accessed a lot of things that we wouldn't have accessed. We learned a lot of things that we wouldn't have learned otherwise, and that's surely a good thing. I think the first question from the audience relates to that, which is, do you think the online community will remain as strong over time? Because obviously it's built in this moment. Do you think it will remain with the same kind of with the same enthusiasm and vigor that it has currently, or do you think it will dissipate? Do you think we will leave a kind of legacy of this sort of new way of interacting and accessing things, or do you think it will go back to normal? Both of you have talked to it. So what do you think? Eva Lotta, let's start with you.
Well, nothing ever stays the same, so it will change, and it will probably be a little bit less, and there will be hybrid forms. I do think that hybrid forms of having some parts online and having some parts in person, and actually thinking more about which activities and which things lend themselves more to be online, because online actually is really good for really focused stuff that is about transmitting information and giving information up front, and then really using the times when we're in the same room for exchange and interaction, and not just giving a talk from the front, but really get into contact and into exchange. And I'm actually excited about building out some of these hybrid formats for some of the things that I teach. And I think for the community, probably there will be slightly less events online, because we want to get some events back offline. But I think connections have been formed in communities that because we have been meeting each other online. And I think also, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't call it friendship, but definitely contacts. And like you're familiar with a few people that you weren't familiar with before. And I think this will stay, and probably also give the possibility for collaborations or other things that might actually manifest themselves in the real world. Yeah,
exactly. Martin, what about you? So there are a few of those. I mean, it sounds like your transformation was complete, and you didn't turn off at all. You just completely kind of changed your behavior and consumed and participated all online, but you didn't slow down. Do you think you're going to continue doing that, or do you think you got a real hunger to get back into the physical world?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think you could compare it with working at Debt, for example, where we had always, before pandemic, every meeting, every workshop was, of course, in the office with the whole team. And now, of course, we found new ways to do that, like Miro, like Eva already told us. And I think when everything is possible again, we can visit each other. I think we have to think like, okay, do we always want to spend those travel times and sometimes it's maybe even better possible online, because there are way more people can be involved, etc. So I think we found new ways, and I think that same goes for inspiration. Like, I think we found now new ways to find our inspiration, like visiting online conferences or platforms, etc. And when everything is going offline again, I think some things will stay. Some things maybe don't have to be offline anymore only. Maybe it's a combination, maybe soon, like when there's a conference, it will be always also recorded or something. So way more people globally can attend to these things. And I think that's a nice progress.
I'd love to see some research. It's probably way too complicated, but I suspect that more people saw more stuff and learnt more things this year than ever before, just simply because access became much more democratic. So, turning up in a conference center halfway around the world is something that most people can't afford, whatever. and suddenly everybody could access a lot more things. And I suspect that, you know, that's changed the course of lots of people's direction as a consequence. But yeah, hopefully some of that will remain so that the doors don't slam shut. And, you know, we can kind of, you know, keep this sort of more democratized access alive and healthy. It's just so, Eva Lotta, you talked about this this period of grace, which I thought was just a really lovely way of talking about the kind of, you know, we all gave ourselves the space to kind of find our feet in this new, you know, in this new paradigm in a kind of hurry, under lots of pressure, and in very new sort of new circumstances. And I was thinking this question as well, but somebody else has asked it, which is fantastic because I don't have to ask it. So how do you think of the concept of giving others grace can last past the pandemic, at work especially? Because I think what you were talking about was, you know, giving ourselves a bit of space to experiment, to find new ways of doing things, and obviously that opportunity was always available to us before. We didn't need the pandemic to kind of force us to try those things. Obviously, you know, the pressure and the circumstances did force that, and obviously we've seen in both your talks tons of innovation, like really people resolving lots of very complex problems to create new kind of viable things, whether you're talking about a talk or conference or whatever. So back to the question, do you think we can keep giving people a license, a period of grace to experiment more? Is that something we can institutionalize?
Well, this is definitely one of my seedlings that I do want to plant into my garden, and hope that other people want this particular weed in their garden as well, because it is so helpful for a lot of things, to give others grace and give yourself grace. And I don't think we're losing a lot, I don't think we lose a lot of efficiency or a lot of, or we're losing our face because we're not professional. I don't know. It's not about that. But I also find that this whole global experience of going through a crisis and something difficult together actually made also business connections more human. I mean, the mere fact that you could see people's homes through Zoom, or that you might have a little chat about something that has been difficult, or there have been 5 minutes of the technology kind of not working properly and you had a little chat while you're fixing it. I don't know. I want to keep that. I do want to keep that. It's my personal mission. And I actually had an insight the other day. It's like, I'm often struggling with the feeling of insecurity. Like being insecure if what I do is good enough, or if this workshop that I propose to a client is the right thing, or if my design is good, blah. We all know this feeling, I think. And I had this revelation that actually insecurity is like being on a mountaintop, and it can go down two directions. And if there's no grace and no gracefulness also from people around you, then it goes into panic and it gets really contracted. But if it falls in a graceful environment and people give you a bit of slack, then actually there's also, in this insecurity, there's also the room for actually feeling, oh, what is new here? There are things that are not known, the curiosity and the discovery. And then insecurity can actually be a real source of discovering something new. And it's not, and just the difference of how you treat it makes a difference. And I thought that was a really beautiful thought, and something that I want to cultivate, definitely.
Yeah, Martin, as well. I mean, obviously, an agency, you guys are hired because you know what you're talking about, and you have to be the authority. And yet, obviously, you like everyone else in the world were probably caught off guard. And did you feel that you were given grace to try and figure out what the right direction would be for your clients, who must have been super stressed out when it all started changing?
Yeah. I think I have to be careful because clients can be watching as well, of course.
Hello, hi, clients.
No, but I think so, and also within our design team, of course. maybe not also always from the client side, but also within our design team, there is grace, and we all help each other and all stimulate each other and want to inspire each other maybe as well. That I think that's an important one. So when somebody is stuck in a project and is insecure or whatever, we help each other, and sometimes we are not on the project, but we work together as a team, and I think that's important one, and not only of course a debt agency, but that's I think the agency life as well. It's not only like working for clients and having tight deadlines and those kind of stuff, but we always work as a team for every project. So
right. All right, awesome. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. We actually have quite a few more questions, but we don't have time to ask them. But you both shared your links to follow you and get a sort of stream of inspiration. Martin, I think you showed 10 places where you collect things that excite you. So
exactly.
And Eva Lotta as well. You shared yours. I think we'll try and there's some comms obviously with the Lovie Awards. So the Instagram feed. If you're on the email, we'll try and share those links if you want to share them with us. If people want to follow.
Yes, and if you want to share the remaining questions with the two of us, it would be interesting. Yes. Maybe I answer a few in my Instagram stories.
One of them you could probably answer in 1 second, which is, what pens do you use? That was one of the questions.
That is
trade secret.
No, it's not a trade secret, but it's one of the most, I don't want to offend anybody, but it is one of the most boring questions because like a chef, it's not the knives that make a good meal. Yes. But yeah, I can, on my Instagram and on my Twitter, I'll post a link to the list of pens.
There you go. I saved that one for the last one. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for attending. That was really super. I mean, not only interesting, but really, really inspiring. So, some really great things came from this horror show we've been in for the last couple of years. So that's definitely something to take inspiration from. So thank you, Eva, and thank you, Martin, for your time and putting your presentations together. That was really great. So just to wrap up, we've got a few housekeeping notes from our end. Obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Lovie Awards extended entry deadline is coming up soon, very soon. In fact, it's next Friday, the 30th of July, and also probably the time when a lot of people are going to be going on holiday. So get your entries in before holiday, because obviously nothing's going to happen in August. This is your last chance to enter this year's awards. Go to lovieawards.com to submit your work. And thank you again for joining us today. We've had a great chat, and this has been a really fun series. I hope you've enjoyed it, and see you soon. Thank you very much.